kind of showing us.
Yes, sir. I definitely will try.
Okay. To kind of help us out a little too, okay?
Yes, sir.
You okay with that?
No problem.
And what I'm going to do is when I'm out here talking with you folks, I'm going to let Maddie stay in here with you while I go out there, and I'm going to give you my notepad. And I want you, if you can, this is completely up to you, to write down how you feel about this. And I want you to put down as if you were talking to maybe her family or something like that, or anybody. Would you have a problem doing that? Okay. Give me that social again, I'm sorry. Do you remember what happened with the other glove? Did you just probably burn it with the rest of the stuff? Or is that the trash that you maybe burned?
It could be. I remember grabbing the gloves.
Where did they come from, do you know?
I had them at the house from cat litter.
Okay. You don't still have any of those gloves, do you?
I'm sure I don't like them.
Is there anything at your house right now that we need to go and take a look at to make sure from this? Anything that you would have taken or still have?
I mean, the only thing at my house is just roaches in the ashtray.
Okay. And we'll probably go over this a couple more times just so I can take some notes and write it all down, but I do want to let you folks know what's going on too. I think they deserve the right to know. And what we're going to do is we're probably going to send an officer out to your house and
I have animals.
well, we can work with that, and can your family get them out?
Yes, sir. If you ask them to go, I mean, it's like a dog and 3 cats. And
Okay. We'll just move them over there because we're going to have to look through your house. You understand?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, these are cotton swabs. What I'm going to do is inside of your mouth on each side for about 10 seconds. I'm going to air dry them and then we'll pull them back in here. And then we're going to seal it up and we're going to do that together.
Yes, sir. That's fine.
Here we go. 1, 2, 3. It's probably what I might do too is I'm going to set up my little recorder and we'll do this on video too, okay?
Yes, sir.
Do you remember what color the gloves were?
Translucent, kind of clear.
Okay.
I could be wrong. I mean,
So you just use the gloves when you leave the body?
I don't even think I used them. I remember getting them, and like I said,
So it's kind of possible you did, possible you didn't.
yes, sir. I mean, I just,
Okay. What I need you to do is put your initials, see how I did mine?
yes, sir.
Over half and half. I need you to do the same thing on that bottom part. We're going to do that one more time, okay?
Yes, sir.
heard, Agent Shadell, actually during what we just heard, we heard you talking about, I don't know if you said cotton swabs or you said something about his mouth. What were you doing at that point?
Obtaining a sample of his DNA.
And prior to this interview, did you have a search warrant for his DNA?
I did.
And again, that particular sample of his DNA, was it submitted to the Georgia Bureau of Investigation Crime Lab?
It was.
And what was the purpose of submitting the defendant's DNA to the crime lab?
To compare it to the glove that we collected at our residence during the inception of the investigation.
Okay. Now, I believe, did we hear you say something about that you were going to set up a video?
Yes.
Right, so I guess let me ask you then, why did you, if you had the capability of a video camera, why did you not set that up to begin with?
I really didn't know what we were going to get based on the initial interview. Usually I just use a recorder. I then decided to set up a video to then document it, his demeanor, everything, even further with a video just to support what we'd already talked about again. So just like a secondary, like a backup.
And I think you said this, but I want to clarify. Generally, the GBI's policy, do you video or audio record your interviews?
We try to, yes.
So, video or audio or both?
Both. Combination. It can be either one.
Okay.
Most of my interviews, I would say, throughout the course of my history as an agent and as an investigator, are usually just audio recorded.
And I guess to be fair, when you walked into the interview that day, did you expect what was going to happen within those first few seconds?
No.
Okay. At the end there, we hear you, do we hear you ask him to write something for you?
Yes, a written statement.
And did he agree to do that?
He did.
Show opposing counsel, it's the March States Exhibit 181. Show you it's the March States Exhibit 181 and ask you, do you recognize that?
I do.
How do you recognize that?
I was there. It's got my signature on it as well with my badge number. This is the actual written statement that Mr. Duke provided after I asked him to.
And is this the original statement that the defendant provided to you on that date?
It is.
Now, you just mentioned your signature on, well, I guess let me do this first. Judge, at this time, I have a tendered evidence states Exhibit 181.
All right, Ms. Merchant, any objection?
No, Judge.
Thank you. That's admitted without objection. States 181.
May I publish that to the jury, Judge?
Yes.
Excellent. Now, looking at states 181, let me ask you first. You mentioned your signature. Is your signature on this document?
It is.
And where is your signature?
Right above the date.
Who wrote the date?
I think I had him write the date.
Right. Other than your signature in this 156, the remainder of the writing, whose writing is that?
Ryan's.
And this, I guess, stamp that's at the bottom, who put that stamp there?
I did.
Was that before or after he wrote the statement?
After.
Other than that stamp, this statement completely as it was on February 22nd of 2017?
It is.
Okay. At the part where I stopped the audio portion, did you turn your video on?
Yes.
And do we have that video itself?
Yes.
Showing opposing counsel to Mark States Exhibit 182. Have you had a chance to view that video recently?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to show you what's been marked as States Exhibit 182 and ask you if you recognize that.
State's Exhibit number 182 is a DVD disc containing that interview, the video interview portion that we're describing now.
How do you know that specific disc is the one that contains this interview?
It's got my initials on it, or I initialed seeing it.
And when you have watched this video, is it a true and accurate depiction of the interview that took, the remainder of this interview that took place on February 22nd, 2017.
It is.
Your Honor, at this time we would tender an evidence takes Exhibit 182.
The objection.
No objection.
182 is admitted without objection. Thank you.
And we would seek to publish that to the jury.
How long is this?
This one is, I probably judge only 20 to 30 minutes. It's the next one that's very long.
All right, 20 minutes, y'all. All right, let's take a recess. Sounds like a kind of an urgent recess. Let's take about 5 to 10 minutes, ladies and gentlemen. If y'all will adjourn to the jury room, we'll be right back with you. Thank you. There goes the gang. This. This wall.
even my old friends. I don't know.
You think it was more like joking around? Was it like a kind of a standard kind of joking around? Oh, you got tested, you got tested.
Yes, sir, it was.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's as good as it can get.
I'd say it was just stupid jokes.
That was when we tested all last night. Right.
Joe's not gonna be here tomorrow. All right, everybody ready to proceed? Ms. Hart? Okay. All right. Mr. Drury, join us, please. All right, Ms. Hart, you can proceed.
Thank you. May I actually publish the original, have the original round, that being State's Exhibit 181?
Sure.
Stop talking to your parents. Someone hand you my notepad and let you write down what you told me, okay? What I'd like for you to do is just put your name on the top and then just start writing whatever you think is important for us to know. Anything, continue, if you want to write out exactly what you told me, it's fine. Whatever you want, I'd like it in your words. Because this is what gets seen. I want your emotion, I want your feelings on this, so whatever you feel is important, I think would be a good thing to write, okay? Come back in a second, okay?
seconds in, and unless there's an objection, I will be moving forward to restart it at approximately 22 minutes in.
All right. That'll be fine, Ms. White.
It's 22:02.
Your folks are fixing it up. Your dad was here too. He told me to tell you and your mom and your stepdad very much. And they'll be in touch, okay? and I'm going to get you to sign as well, okay? And I just have a couple of requests. Before each, like right here and here at the end, put your initials so nobody can go in and put anything else there. And would you date it too? And it's February 22nd, 2017. 2017. And then do it for each paragraph. Just like you do. I just, like I said, because we didn't have the video going. We didn't sign this? No. I'm going to go through this one more time, okay, from start to finish. We have the benefit of looking back and knowing when this happened. If you said it was in the fall, it was a year that she went missing.
The timeline is, ever since I tried to kill myself for a bunch of years, and since then I can't place a lot of stuff in the corridor.
Okay.
I remember most of it, but like I said, it's...
Okay. All right, so in the fall, we know it was 2005. Okay, so the fall of 2005, which is kind of what it's showing there. That sound right after you got out of the military?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so when you got out of the military, you moved in with who?
My dad.
Okay,
My brother. My dad stayed with us for maybe a month or two, and then we got a job and moved. We got his own place, and it was me and my brother, and both stayed with us all in all.
Both years, and you both sleeping?
Yes.
Okay, so you say one particular night, you don't remember exactly the date, you said you were dealing with, some drugs and some alcohol issues in your life.
Yes,
I'm assuming you started that house because you said you had to get those keys.
yes, sir. I woke up, I passed out in the bathroom, and like I said, I wanted to get high.
So you went into Bo's.
I got his keys out of his pants. He stayed in the spare bedroom, and I just left.
What kind of truck did you have?
It was a 5 Ford, F-150 or something.
Okay. And were you just kind of like driving around the facility?
No, so there was 4 or 5 different houses that you can tell if somebody's home or not. It was, like I said, I don't know how I ended up there.
But it was random.
Yes, sir.
You never had any relationship with Tara, y'all never messed around, she never knew who you really were, other than, you had her as a teacher, right?
I never had her as a teacher. She was a teacher at the school, but I never spoken a word to her.
Okay. So no phone calls, no casual meetings, encounters, accidental encounters. So you go to her house, do you remember what the house looked like? Color?
Why? Definitely. Beige, maybe.
Was there any cars there?
I think so. 100%.
Okay. And you obviously did park like right in front of the house, I'm assuming, right?
I don't know. I don't remember. I mean, it just... What led me there is... I don't know. I do not know.
But, so you go to the front door,
Yes,
and you can start from there about how you got the house.
I broke in with a credit card. With the turn lock, it was locked. But like I said, you can pop it real easy with a card. I learned that when I locked myself out several times. So I went in the house, and so I see her purse, and next thing I know, she said something and grabbed me on the shoulder, and I hit her, and I said, I think I left. went home, and came back, and I called, and everything was okay, but it wasn't.
Let's go back over. You said you called him. I know you said it was, but you said that this was his daylight when you came back?
It was getting to daylight. It was early in the morning.
So you said you went to, what kind of phone did you use?
It was a payphone.
Do you remember which store it was?
The TG now was, I can't remember what it was at the time.
The one right next to FedEx?
Yes, sir.
So you went to the payphone there, you said?
Yes, sir.
And how did you call the house? What did you do?
I dialed 411 to get the number because I didn't know what, and they wouldn't answer. And I went and I drove by. And
You were hoping that she would answer the phone, and when she did, you knew something was wrong.
yes, sir. And so I went back in, and she was still laying on the floor. And that's when I tried to clean up.
What did you do to clean up? You said you wore gloves too, right?
No, sir, not when I broke in.
When you went to clean up, you wore gloves?
No, sir, I brought them in and put them on. I think, I don't remember putting them
Well,
on.
we're pretty certain you probably put them on because
Yes,
there's DNA on there.
sir.
Nobody else helped you?
No, sir.
Okay.
No, sir. I was on by myself and said I got there and put her in the back of the truck.
This is still kind of getting daylight, so it's still kind of dim dark. Nobody obviously saw you.
Not that I know of. I mean, I hope not.
I mean, did you have to pull? You obviously didn't carry her from the house out to the middle of the road.
No.
You parked probably right in the driveway, right? Or pretty close?
Yes, sir. I mean, I had to, just like you said, I wouldn't have walked. I couldn't have walked very far.
You just put her over your shoulder. You said you had her wrapped in a quilt though, right?
Yes, sir. I carried her. Small. And I just put her in the truck. Inside her, I feel my left. I told my friend about it, and he didn't believe me.
That was right.
Yes, sir. So that day too fast, and then, the story broke, she was missing, and that's when he hit me in the cremator.
Tell me about that. Y'all go back up there again.
Yes, sir. So I went to even with a woodshed, and stole some wood. And so we took her out there. Little spot is by the lake with a little, looks like a mini island. I remember that. It's not far behind that. It's where we cremated her.
And you said that you don't remember what happened with the clothes or anything like that.
No, sir. I don't know. I don't remember removing any of her clothes. I mean, I know she was dressed when I put her in the quilt.
Do you remember what she was wearing when you first?
No, sir.
Blue jeans, shorts, t-shirt. So she was clothed when you had an encounter with her?
Yes, sir. She was, I was saying, in sleeping clothes. I don't know.
This is late at night, it's pretty probably she probably was sleeping.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. The person keys, we talked about that. If you thought about that a little more, would that be more accurate what we talked about?
Yes, sir. I'd probably grab the purse when I ran. I mean, I was trying to get in trouble when he, never hurt her or anybody. I just didn't. I don't. It's just not me. I mean, I don't even like physical violence. It's, like I said, I must have threw it out. I realized what it was really.
But Bo wasn't with you that whole night
No, sure.
that,
No, sure.
that everything kind of happened.
No, sure. It's just me.
And like,
Like I said, it was just a dumpster. I mean, it wasn't, I never thought about anything like that.
did you shop anywhere else and get any drugs from anybody that night after that happened?
I'm sure. I'm sure I didn't.
You said you went back. You said after you dumped her body out by the orchard, you went back and to clean up a little bit. Was it messy? Was there a mess to clean up?
I'm not sure. It was just an ash pile, and I remember I put it in just burning trash, so it looked like it was a party.
What about back at Tara's house when you said you went back to go clean up? Was there anything to clean up there?
I'm not sure.
Anything broken, like
Not that I'm aware
there was a
of.
struggle fighting there?
Not that I'm aware of. Not sure. I mean, I was so panicked at what happened. I didn't really look around the room to see if anything was out of range. I'm just scared.
That in whatever shock or what was going on, that could have taken place?
I can't say no because I can't guarantee nothing. I mean, I don't remember doing that. I remember getting her and meeting her. I mean, that's the only fear thing in my head,
I mean, it just seems like, I'm not saying you're not like the Incredible Hulk, so to speak, so,
Sure.
you hitting her one time doesn't seem to be the type of, I'm not saying it can't happen, it can.
Well, I'm not sure. I don't, like I said,
Could it be maybe a hit and then just to make sure because you're so shocked and freaked out?
I don't know. I mean, I just don't know. I mean,
But you did take the gloves with you. We'll get that. You did take, whether
yes, sir.
you used them or didn't use them, you did take those
Yes, sir.
translucent type
Yes, sir.
gloves with you to help, because you didn't want to leave anything behind, correct?
Yes, sir. I just, like I said, I panicked and it was, I don't know. I mean, I was scared and just seemed like I made every bad decision worse. I mean,
Throughout the course of all this, you pretty much, have you stayed down, since all that happened, you stayed and lived in this area?
yes. Yes, sir. Well, that's been around Fisher, then I moved back out to where I'm staying now. about 6 years, I think.
Nobody's ever talked to you about this before, and you've never disclosed this to anybody before, other than at the beginning with code. Confront you about this, and then you just didn't believe you?
He may have, and if he did, I would lie, like I have for years.
I mean, it's like, even in like passing or just joking, has anybody ever said, you know anything about that?
Yes, there were a lot of rumors, and I didn't do anything to discourage it. I guess.
What do you mean? I don't understand what you mean.
Well, I don't really know how to phrase it. I let people say what they wanted to say.
So the people were pointing their finger at you?
Yes, sir.
I mean, who were these people? Do you remember who they were?
No, sir. I can't even my old friends. I don't know.
You think it was more like joking around? Was it like a kind of a standard kind of joking around? Oh, have you got tested? You got tested?
Yes, sir. It was. I'd say it was just stupid jokes, but as in somebody asking me directly, other than they asked if I had been tested, and I said no, nobody's ever contacted me.
So that's been throughout the years.
Yes.
And this has been kind of the first real. I think you kind of wanted to tell us yesterday.
Yes, sir, I did. He tried to be decent. He was respectful to my mother. Through every prejudice thing I had by law enforcement, I let him go. I would come straight out and say something before somebody had actually kind of talked to me about it. Because I don't want to do this to my family, man. I know I fucked up my life, and I know I've destroyed hers and her family's. But it ain't nothing I wouldn't give. Just to have one fucking small thing go different. Me not leaving there. The 8,000 million fucking possibilities go through your head. What if you did this or didn't do that? And I heard myself pretty much the same. I tried to treat it how I treated drugs, alcohol. The alcohol got killed me. And I hurt it so much good. I've been tired for a long time.
It was just the right time to do this, wasn't it?
It's been past the right time. Like I said, if I hadn't been such a coward, I came forward a long time ago. I didn't want nobody to get hurt. And they did, and I can't take it back, no matter how much I will, or won't, never pray for it. I just ain't no opening the place to order me. So I was just, as long as relief when you came.
I can kind of see it. It's coming off you a little bit the more we're talking. You're upset, but you're not like you were when we first started.
I'm not for myself. I went through there like I could have told, and the only fucking voice I kept hearing is just tell the fucking truth. Be my influence, and try to be the person that people thought I could be, instead of just being nothing.
And you said there's nothing, but if we're going to go look at the house, there's nothing in the house that anything. Is there anything that we could find that would even be like a book with hard news articles in it? Have you done like computer searches? Do you don't have a cell phone or anything like
I
that?
have a Kindle, but I mean, I look at ESPN and
Is there anything on there related to this in any way whatsoever? Any computer searches?
I have a computer. Okay.
So you just use like a Wi-Fi Kindle from your parents' house?
Well, I have my own internet connection.
Okay. But there's not going to be like a book, you never checked any newspaper articles or anything like that? You were kind of trying to distance yourself from it the whole time?
Sickeningly ashamed of it. I mean, it seems like when you're trying to hide a lie, it's going to pop out at you from everywhere.
Right.
I mean,
Before all this, I know you were in the military for a little while. What happened with all that?
I didn't think I could kill. I didn't think I could hurt anybody. And it just, when I was at airborne school, a girl died during practice going off of signal 30 and
Okay.
scared the shit out of me. You know, I didn't think this country was worth fighting for, to be honest. I mean, I hate to say that, but
You went AWOL,
yes, sir.
and then you went back and got did the break time, then had to do the discharge.
Yes, sir. I went to Fort Sill, and I think it was about when I closed out there, that it was about 3 weeks to breathe, and about a week out processing.
And then when you got out of the military, that was at the end of August, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, sir. It was a downward spiral. I mean, I just separated from the girl I really cared about.
That's what I was going to ask, was there anybody that you were seeing around the time that this all happened, or right before?
Yes, sir. It was, like I said, about 2-3 months before that, the girl I was dating broke up with me.
Was she a local girl from here? Who was that?
Nancy Ross McMahon.
Okay, so that's Ben's sister.
Yes, sir.
And then Ben died of cancer. The old friends were.
Used to before when me and Lindsay had a thing, and it was just that thing, and pretty much ruined the whole relationship, and it was my fault.
I know you said that you don't remember having any clothes on, or having clothes, you don't remember not having clothes on. But do you remember anything specific about her, whether or not at the time she had any jewelry on, or tattoos, scars, marks?
Not sure. I mean,
Do you remember seeing anything on her?
not sure.
Nose ring, eye ring, earring,
Not
tongue ring?
I'm not sure. I mean, she, to be honest, I didn't think about it. You know, it was just a nice kid that was scared.
And once again, nobody else helped you the night that you killed her. Nobody else helped you move the body until the body's out at the farm,
Yes,
and you and Bo burned the body together.
yes.
And you said that took a couple of days.
I'm sure it does. So we murdered, we put it by the truck, and I had to burn with it. So we went back out there the next day, and so got it with ash and good and spread, around that little island thing, and burned some trash on top of it.
Okay. And you don't have any problem taking this out there? Is there anything else you can think of? You think there's one for us to know? Moving forward? Any questions you have? I mean, if you could tell the family one thing
today will be. I'm sorry that you fucking close. Because you close thinking to the pain I call those people. I took their daughter, not only her, but every potential possibility of a life she could have had. You know, I wasn't able to see her get married or having kids or just growing old. I took that from them. Don't nobody deserve that. Nobody. Ain't nothing I can do or say to even come close to telling them how bad I feel about it. But it's a word for women, you know. I don't say I take the pain away, but sometimes pain's the only thing you got left.
The time now is 2:19 p.m. We're going to conclude the interview.
Be fine. Anybody need a break?
So Agent Chevelle, was it, while the video is good to let us see you and the defendant, was it a bit harder, the microphone not quite as good as the audio one that you had?
I'm sorry.
Was the microphone on the equipment we just watched the video from not quite as good as your audio from your CD?
Correct. This is coming from the computer and the
Okay.
camera itself, which is on the other side of the table.
However, do you recall specifically this interview that you did with the defendant?
I do.
Okay. Just a couple things that I want to talk with you about. Specifically, you asked him some questions about whether or not someone had ever confronted him about murdering Miss Grinstead. Who was that person you were asking about?
I'm sorry.
You asked him once or more than one time throughout that interview if someone back in 2005 had ever confronted him about whether or not he killed Miss Grinstead.
Correct.
Who was the person you were talking about, asking if that person confronted him?
It would have been law enforcement primarily.
Okay.
Anybody from law enforcement would have been my primary
Okay.
asking for that.
Do you know who all was living, based on what the defendant told you, who was living at the residence with the defendant back in 2005 when this murder occurred?
If I recall, he said it was he, himself, Bo, and maybe Stephen on and off, his brother.
That was going to be my question. And what is his relationship to the defendant?
That's his brother, Stephen Duke.
And to your knowledge, did you ask the defendant if Stephen had ever confronted him?
Yes.
Okay. And I think you've just said this, but when we hear you and the defendant referencing Bo in this interview, who is the person the two of you are discussing?
You have to read that again. It's a lot.
When we hear, sorry, I'm trying not to sit on top of people over here too. When we hear you and the defendant discussing someone by the name of Bo,
Right.
who is that person? Who is Bo?
Bo Dukes.
Okay, so I want to be clear that we're talking about the same person.
Yes.
And as it relates to what the defendant indicated he did, there were times that, it's kind of difficult to hear, so what did he tell you about it back then? Do you recall how he said her body got from the house to the truck?
He took it out there. He actually made the motion during the interview when he put his hands up like this, kind of mimicking how he actually held her body.
And I know you're not able to see the video that we've just seen, so do you have a recollection of that from that day?
I do.
And do you recall if he had any reaction himself as he was mimicking holding her body?
Yeah, I think, and you've heard it on the video, I think as he's doing that, he kind of started getting emotional and started, I think he said, and she was so small, referring to her size and his own.
Now, I want to shift gears just a little bit and talk to you about something we refer to as guilty knowledge. Can you tell the jurors what we mean by guilty knowledge?
Sure. Guilty knowledge is the facts of an investigation that the only people who know of that would be the person or persons who committed the actual act because they were there at the time, and generally law enforcement because we have investigated, we have found out these leads. We don't release a lot of that information. We try to keep that information in-house, so when we actually talk to somebody who was involved, they're able to give us some of those details that only the person or persons who committed the crimes will have known about.
In this particular case, when you became the lead agent, was it 2009? Did you become familiar with any guilty knowledge that had been held back in this case?
Yes, a couple of facts, yes.
And what were those facts?
The first one was on the glove. We talked about that there was a unknown DNA, male DNA on the glove. We talked about that openly, but what we never disclosed early on was that Tara's DNA was also on the glove. So that was a specific fact that how do we know that that glove was connected to Tara? Well, Tara's DNA was on it. We knew that, but we didn't release that initially. The second is a telephone call that was made to Tara's house the morning of that Sunday morning. There was a 411 call made to her house. Other agents. This is before I had become involved in the investigation. I had learned this from other agents who had worked on the investigation. They disclosed to me after I became the case agent about that particular phone call, that was a 411 call made to her residence from a payphone at the G&G store. So I knew of that phone call, and I know that phone call, the 411, the store was used. I know that was never made public to anyone throughout the course of the investigation. There may have been a handful of people at our office who actually even knew about that.
Okay. And what store, well, I guess let me ask you first. When you were speaking with the defendant, specifically as to any phone calls that were made, okay, to be fair, when you first asked him if he made any phone calls, did he deny that?
At first, I think he kind of said maybe he did, and then and then I said, well, I know there were some phone calls, because I came back and I said, I know there were some phone calls made. Okay. I just never disclosed the specifics of the phone call.
So that was my next question. At any point prior to what we were able to hear and see, did you ever tell Ryan Duke about a phone call being made to Tara's residence from a payphone?
No.
Did you ever tell Ryan Duke about a phone call being made to Tara's residence in which someone used directory assistance or 411?
No.
After you indicated to him that you knew there were some phone calls made that morning, and to be fair, was that 411 call the only phone call that was made to her residence that morning?
No.
But after you make that statement to him, was he able to give you details that formed guilty knowledge?
Yes.
And specifically, what were the details that you recall him giving you about that payphone, or excuse me, about that telephone call?
The location of the where the phone call was made, that it was made from a payphone, both of which we verified, and that he had used directory assistance or 411 at the time to make that phone call.
And now you said the location of that payphone. Where was that payphone located from which the call was made in 2005?
At the G&G store right here.
Okay, and your pointing, is that just less than a block from here?
Yeah, it's right next to Peck's,
okay.
The restaurant on the corner.
And was the defendant able to indicate to you that the phone call he made that morning to her residence was from that location?
He did.
And did he ever tell you why he made that phone call to her location?
He did.
What did he tell you about that?
He said that he called to, in his words, I think he wanted her to answer the phone, or somebody to answer the phone, like her to answer the phone, that she would not actually be dead. And then nobody answered the phone, and then he went directly to the house.
Okay. And I believe towards the end of maybe the audio, We hear you asking him questions about, is this the person that we've been talking about that you killed? What were you doing at that point on the audio? We can't see it. What were you doing to show him something?
I had pictures of Tara Grinstead that I showed him.
And I want to show you specifically on the screen in front of you what's been previously entered as States 135. Do you recall if a copy of this picture is one of the pictures you showed him?
Yes.
And when you showed him those pictures, what was his response about whether or not this was the person that he killed back in 2005?
He identified that being the person that he killed.
Now, throughout the course of this interview, did you recall the defendant telling you how exactly he killed Tara Grinstead?
He said that he hit her.
And do we later on hear you trying to, I guess, flesh that out about how that occurred?
Correct.
One time we even hear you kind of make a somewhat of a joke, lighthearted anyway, about him not being the Hulk. Can you explain to the jury the purpose of continuing to ask questions about that?
Sure. At the time that he's saying that he struck her, he's saying he struck her the one time during the interview. He said he struck her, and that's what killed her. And so you can hear during the audio and in the video when I'm asking him to describe. I'm not saying that that's not possible, that couldn't happen. It absolutely can. He was in the military. He's got military training at the time that all that happened. I'm not saying that wasn't the possibility, but trying to elaborate if there was other possibilities, other things that he had done, like choking or some other form or fashion that he had done to try to kill Miss Grinstead.
Okay. And to be clear, when he told you that he hit her, what part of his body did he indicate he had used to hit her, either through words or through motions or?
Without benefit of looking at the video, I'm pretty certain he talked about his hand. I know he talked about his hand several times. I can't remember if he made a motion gesture with his fist or anything, but I know he said his hand.
I know that sounds kind of like a silly question, but I just want to make sure. I mean, he wasn't saying he headbutted her or anything of that nature.
Correct.
Now, let's talk about the glove, because you mentioned earlier that the glove was a form of guilty knowledge. By the time that you interviewed the defendant, would you agree that it was pretty well known that a glove had been found?
Yes.
What about the fact that a glove had been found and at least one unknown male's DNA had been found on the glove?
Yes.
And when I say widely known, I mean not by the GBI, I mean by anybody who knew about this case.
Right. There were several television shows, broadcast shows that had broadcast stories about the Grinstead case throughout the years. I'm almost certain that they even maybe disclosed towards the end there about the Tara's DNA being on there as well.
However, in many of those news stories, did they have an opinion about what color the glove was?
Over the TV shows?
Yes.
No, because I'm pretty certain there was a picture of it, but there were other times where other gloves were mentioned that were found in the area.
For instance, during the podcast, do you remember, are you familiar with the podcast in this case? Are you familiar with whether or not during the podcast there was all this talk about a blue glove?
Yes.
And in fact, have there been over the years pictures of a blue glove displayed?
Yes.
To your knowledge, in this investigation, was the glove that was collected from Tara Grinstead's home ever blue?
No.
Okay. So in talking to the defendant, did you ask him what color the glove was that he brought to her residence?
I did.
And what did he tell you? Do you recall?
He said it was a translucent or clear colored glove.
Okay. The fact that he knew what color glove had been located at her home, is that something that you took notice of?
Yes.
And further, did he tell you why he owned those types of gloves?
Yes, he said that they had cats at his house and he used the gloves to change the cat litter.
Okay. Now, the defendant's brother, Stephen Duke, do you know what he does for a living?
I do not.
Okay. So you don't know where he works?
I don't.
Okay, that's fine. So, and to be clear, when did the defendant indicate he brought the glove to Tara's home?
He said he brought the gloves after he killed her. He said he killed her, then left the house in a rush, went back to his house to gather a quilt and the gloves, to then come back to the crime scene, which is, again, when he made the phone call on his way back to the house and then went to the house.
Towards the end of the video portion, we hear you discussing going out there or him taking you somewhere. Where is it that you wanted him to go with you?
The orchard where they dumped the body, where he dumped the body the first time, and then they took the body to the secondary location.
Okay. And before I move on, let's talk about that. The information that you just said, where he dumped the body and then they took it to a secondary location. Can you tell us what you mean by that from what Ryan Duke told you?
Sure. He said when he took her out to the orchard, he put her into the pecan orchard, and that the body stayed there for several days before they went back out. He and Bo went back out there to the orchard, and then that's when Bo found out and saw the body for the first time, and then they moved the body from there together to deeper into the woods to the pine tree area, then went back to the shed and got the loads of wood from the shed that was located just near the entrance as you go in, and then proceeded to burn the body.
Based on what Ryan Duke told you, did Bo Dukes ever go to Tara Grinstead's residence?
No.
Based on what Ryan Duke told you, when did Bo Dukes become involved in this conspiracy?
He said he told him Sunday when he got back to the house that he had killed her. He said Bo didn't believe him.
Yes, sir.
And then he told him again. The investigation had been going on at that time for several days, and he and Bo conversated again. I think it was that Wednesday. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. That Wednesday is the day they went back out to the orchard.
Okay. And the orchard that we've been discussing, is that located in Irwin County?
No, it's in Fitzgerald, Ben Hill County.
Did you personally charge Bo Dukes with any crimes related to his actions in burning Tara Grinstead's body?
I did.
And offhand, do you recall what those crimes were that you charged Bo Dukes with?
Concealing death.
And are those charges against Bo Dukes still pending?
They are.
Now, the orchard that we've heard about from the defendant and that we talked about earlier that belonged to Randy Hudson, did the defendant agree to go with you out there that day?
He did.
After the video was turned off in this interview, is there a second recording, both audio and video, of the defendant?
Yes.
When does the second interview, I'm going to call it a second interview,
okay.
But the audio portion, why did you turn the audio back on at that point?
I came back in because I had left the room after that initial video cuts off. I leave the room. I then start making some phone calls to the agents that were at the location. There was already agents out there at the orchard area, near that orchard area. I was letting my boss know what was going on, advising him of everything that had just happened, took place. We're getting ready to come out there. I had some administrative paperwork that still needed to be completed. And so I was out of the room at that point in time. Then when I came back in the room, we started the recorder again, just the audio recording. And I knew we were getting ready to leave and get in my car and drive. So there was no capability of having further video going on from my computer that we were doing the actual interview with.
Yes.
And so turned the recorder back on, completed some of the administrative paperwork that we did. At that point, we got in my vehicle, and myself, Brian, and Agent Holland, Madison Holland.
Yes, sir.
And then we drove together to the orchard in Fitzgerald.
Okay. You say that after this video that we just watched was turned off, that you left the room. Do you recall if Agent Madison Holland also left the room, or if he stayed in there with Bo Dukes?
With Ryan?
With Ryan, I'm sorry.
I can't remember, honestly.
Okay.
I don't remember if he stayed. He may have stayed in for a few minutes and maybe back and forth. I think we may have both been in and out in that area.
So I want to talk about the audio portion we've listened to just a minute before we go into the second audio. In the beginning, why did you not immediately advise Mr. Duke, Ryan Duke, of these Miranda rights that we talked about earlier and that we heard you?
He wasn't in custody.
And at some point, well, let me ask this first. We talked about that prior to you reading Miranda rights, was he there voluntarily and free to go?
Yes.
At the point where you read Miranda, why have you chosen to stop and read Miranda at that specific point?
Because he wasn't going to be free to leave at that point.
And why was that?
because he had just confessed to murdering Miss Grinstead.
Okay. And throughout the interview, does Mr. Duke make statements to you that acknowledge the fact that he knows that he's not free to leave anymore, essentially?
Yes.
Okay. So let's talk about when you turned the audio back on. You talked about you had some administrative paperwork to do. Can you tell the jury what that was?
Arrest. I think it's the arrest record.
Okay. And again, that was audio recorded?
It is.
Have you had a chance to listen to that audio recently?
Yes.
Show opposing counsel. It's the marked as State's Exhibit 185. Agent Chanel, I'm going to show you what I marked as State's Exhibit 185. Ask you to take a look at that for me, please.
Sure. Okay.
Do you recognize what 185 is?
I do.
And how do you recognize 185?
I recognize it because I'm the one that created this. This is a copy, a DVD copy of that second audio recording with Ryan, dated and timed.
Okay.
With my initials on it.
That's going to be my question. So, is this a true and accurate recording of that second audio with Brian Duke?
It is.
Showing opposing counsel of our marked State's Exhibit 186. Should have done this at the same time. Sorry. To show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 186. Do you recognize that?
I do.
How do you recognize that?
This is a DVD copy of the video that was created with Ryan and myself going out to the orchard.
Okay. And how do you know that that's a true and accurate copy, or how do you know that disc is the disc that you're talking about?
I viewed it and then initialed the disc itself.
Okay. And is this disc a true and accurate recording of the video that was taken at the orchard?
Yes.
Now, this particular video, did you take it yourself?
I did not.
Okay. But are you actually in the video?
Yes.
As it relates to State's Exhibit 185, the audio recording, does it continue running while the video recording, State's Exhibit 186, is also running?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. So at some portion, are these, both 186 and 185, going to be overlapping as far as content?
Yes.
Okay. Your Honor, at this time, I would seek to publish 185, but I would say that there's probably a good stopping point where we could stop when they get in the vehicle if we're going to need a break or take lunch, because it is rather long.
How long is 185?
185 is 2 hours.
All right, but there's a good break point
Yes,
after
Your
how
Honor.
long?
I'd say about 25, 30 minutes.
All right, we got about 25 minutes of audio. Does anybody need a break before we launch into that? Thank you. All right.
Thank you, Judge.
Any objection to 185?
No, Judge, thank you.
All right, that's submitted without objection.
And I apologize, I forgot. I said 185 and 186. I would seek to admit those.
Any objection to 186, Ms. Parker?
No, thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. Norton, yes.
Do you need some water? You got it.
I've got some, thank you.
Mr. Rigby, sorry, I'm just afraid I'm going to get it wrapped up in the cords if I do it by myself. Thank you. Perfect.
That's all audio. Yeah, want that backed up just a little bit. It looks like
Please. Okay.
it might already be in your lap a little bit. So,
Apologize, I just was trying to
No,
make
that's
sure
all
it's
right.
loud enough.
The whole point is so you can hear it as well
Okay,
as
good.
you can. So if some of you need it closer, just let us know, okay?
One of the jurors has just told me it's plenty loud, so we have succeeded.
Was that certificate 316?
And I apologize. I'm going to stop that again and just back it up. may I get a flag now?
Today's date is Wednesday, February the 22nd, 2017. Time now is 2:42 p.m. located at the Osceola Police Department with Ryan Duke. And we're going to start working on the arrest record at this point. And this wasn't on record. I'm putting it on record now that you understand you are under arrest.
Yes, sir, I do.
You know what I mean? You just call you Ryan.
Yes, sir.
Oh, that's what you're saying.
Badge I do.
That's all right. Tell me your birthday again.
11/30/1983.
Born where?
Fitzgerald, Georgia, Normandy Medical Center.
336.
Yes, sir.
Pleasure Lake Lane. What was that zip code? 31?
774.
Brown.
Yes, sir.
Brown. How tall are you?
5'9", I think. 5'10" with shoes.
How much do you weigh?
About 198.
Scars, marks, tattoos.
I got a tattoo
I'm just going to write them down. Tattoos.
on both shoulders.
Okay. So, and what we'll do is we'll just take photographs.
Yes, sir. I got a scar from where I was on dialysis for about a year.
So you got tattoos, both shoulders,
Yes, sir.
right calf, and then you have a scar on your chest.
Yes, sir.
Would you have like a port? Had to put a port in?
Yes, sir. Right there.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, my mom had to have one of those.
That's horrible. So they're hooked up to drink so much, my kidneys are just shut down.
Really? Got all your teeth on them pretty good? Or?
They're sure falling out. When I quit drinking, they went to shit. Perfect teeth the whole time I was a drug addict, but
Usually does. Tell me that home phone number again.
229-468.
But education, 12th grade.
Yes, sir.
And tell me your social one more time.
257-51.
You're not working anywhere, are you?
No, sir, I'm on disability.
You have a driver's license?
No, sir.
I'm assuming since you don't have a driver's license, you don't own a vehicle?
No, sir.
Okay. Not married.
No, sir.
Tell me your dad's name.
Frederick Linnaeus.
Where does Mr. Frederick stay at?
It's on, I can't remember the
Here in Osceola?
Yes, sir. It's right across from the hospital,
Okay.
right there on the corner where the project houses are.
Yes, sir. And your mother's name?
Karen, you want her maiden or given?
It's Karen O'Neill now.
Yes, sir.
We'll just
Yes,
use
sir.
that.
Okay.
And that the house next to you, was that 336?
No, that's 332. I'm in 336.
32 Pleasure Lake. And I know your brother Stephen
Yes, sir.
Duke, and he lives in Omega.
Yes, sir.
I'm gonna see him today.
I hadn't spoke to him in years. So.
You don't talk to your brother about him?
He's doing good. You know,
Feel like you're
I'm not worthy to have that kind of, I don't feel like I deserve to have those kinds of relationships anymore. I haven't for a long time. And girls, that's the biggest reason is, you know, I could have come in here and lied and tried to manipulate it. I mean, but I don't want them kids.
you don't want to put them through it too.
They don't deserve it. They're innocent.
Any other brothers?
Just Stephen and Jamie. I mean,
Jamie?
There's
That's James O'Neill. Then.
yes, sir.
That's your stepbrother. I'll put step.
He's half.
Or half brother, excuse
Yes,
me.
sir.
And that's James O'Neill.
Yes, sir.
I think he was here earlier.
Yeah, he wouldn't.
He stays out there at 332?
Yes, sir. Him and his wife and their girls. He works as a butcher and meat market. They, you
Have the
know,
Harleys?
Nashville. Yes, sir.
No sister? No sisters? What we'll do is, at some point we have to take you over to the jail. You understand? And what we'll do is, at that point, we'll take some overall photographs
I understand.
of the tattoos and scars and all that kind of stuff. Mr. this is an arrest record. This is just basically all the information that we went over together.
Yes, sir.
The only thing it doesn't have on here is the offenses yet. That won't be put on there until tomorrow.
I understand.
Just make sure that all this information is correct, and then you just sign right there where it says suspect signature. By signing this doesn't say you're guilty of anything, even though you've admitted to what you've done. This just says that you're aware that this is the information is correct.
I understand. I do know what's going to happen when I came in here today.
We're going to wait just a little bit there because all those people are still out there.
I understand.
We got to make sure that area's kind of cleared a little bit,
That's right. I understand.
and then kind of go from there. Can I get you some water, something to drink? You want a water? Why don't I get you a water?
I'm okay.
You sure?
Yes.
I mean, I don't want you to be dehydrated either.
No, sir. It's fine. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Want anything to eat?
No, sir.
Snack? I mean, an orange?
No.
Bag of chips?
No, thank you.
Whatever you need, go
I
get it.
appreciate it.
And I'm glad that you've decided to do the right thing. I mean, that's all you can do at this point, is do the right thing. And that's what you're doing. And there's nothing wrong with that.
I just wish so many people didn't have to get hurt.
Not in the least.
And that's been a disappointment in my family, just constant.
I bet you're going to find that you probably aren't as much of a disappointment to them as you think you are.
Man. Myself in the mirror, I haven't been able to for years.
I'm hoping after today you can. Because believe it or not, you're doing the right thing. Putting this behind you finally, I promise you're going to be, because now this slate is clean, it won't seem like that for a little while, but I promise you at the end of the day, you're going to be happy that this slate's clean.
Not sure. I got to live with that.
Understand?
And
But knowing that you've done the right thing now should give you something.
yeah, but I didn't for a long time, and I think that matters more.
Well, everybody has their own opinions on things, you understand that, you know?
Yes, sir.
Like I said, the only thing that we were coming to today was, I understand the whole, you punched her and hit her and knocked her out. I'll be honest with you, I've never seen that happen. I'm not saying it can't, but so.
Everything's just so freely is. A lot of it's clear. I mean,
But just the act itself.
yes, sir. I don't know if it's the adrenaline or fear or whatever happened. It's not clear. I can't see it, and every other part of this I can pretty kind of remember a lot better than, say, you asked me what I did 2 weeks ago. I can't fucking tell you, if I wasn't sitting at home.
And this is pretty traumatic, though. You got to remember that traumatic event.
Yes, sir.
And I guess that's really, the whole thing. I know you're saying, but, you're clouding on that part, but you're not, obviously, when you cremate a body, you know that you're the one responsible for
Yes, sir.
that.
I killed her. I mean, it's my fault. She's gone. I have no illusions about that. And acting out and getting as far gone on the dope and the drugs is just hoping somebody, would show up.
Probably was hoping to get it behind you.
Yes, sir. Just because I wasn't, like I said, I wasn't strong enough to do it on my own. I didn't want willingly cause harm on my family, and I know that's a cowardly ass act on my part. I mean, whatever's coming, I deserve it.
Well, maybe there's a point where you can get to talk to somebody like a counselor that deals with these kinds of emotional issues that can help you and give you some tools to help you deal with it.
Yes, sir.
Like I said, what I do in this line of work, I know we're police and we have this order, but at the end of the day, we're here to help people more than hurt people, more than anything. We're not out here to hurt people. We have a job to do. We have to, and what we do in the Bureau and what every officer does is all we are is truth finders.
Just said my stepdad was better, and I didn't mean by my comments to be disparaging to what I think the troops stand for. I think it's a hell of a thing.
My father was a soldier. I mean, you understand.
You know, just law enforcement too. Y'all getting there's good and bad people on both sides, and I believe that I had a very skewed opinion before you treated me the way you were.
Very well.
I mean,
well, you're a person, aren't you? Don't you deserve to be treated with respect?
tell that to the people, tell that to anybody. I can't tell you the last what it came down to last night. I can't remember the last time somebody was willfully kind and respectful to me, instead of looking at me like I'm fixing to steal their wallet or, you know, I mean, I know I have anxiety problems. I'm almost agoraphobic, you know, having panic attacks and shaking on the way here just because I was leaving my house, you know, I mean, that's how isolated I've been.
Just knowing you were kind of leave the house and come down here today.
Well, most are just even going anywhere from my house. I panic. I mean, it's not that bad, like with me and you in here, but you 4 or 5 more people, and I'll get extremely uncomfortable and clammy. I think I'm slightly autistic too, because I have a hard time maintaining eye contact. You know, I try.
Right,
But, you know, I grew up in the 80s, so I didn't know what the fuck autism was.
I would say now,
yes, sir, I mean, I think all of us, there's a spectrum for it.
and I'll tell you, when we go out there, we've kind of, what we're doing, the reason I was taking a little time, is we're clearing that area out.
Right.
Because I realize that in you. And so we're clearing that area out to make sure there's nobody out there except for just a couple people out of the way. Because there's probably like 20 people out there doing what they're doing.
I understand, man. Y'all got a job to do just like everybody else.
Well, we're kind of like I said, we're clearing that area so you're not going to have to go through a mass of people. And they're all law enforcement people. They're all GBI agents.
Yes, sir.
You know. And I'll tell you tonight, later on this afternoon, we're supposed to interview Stephen this afternoon at 5 here. Well, it might be another agent that talks to him, but we're going to go talk to the family. We're going to go talk to her family this afternoon. They actually live in Perry. Now, they moved from Alabama to Perry, and I'm going to express to them, you know, what you told me. And, you know, express your, you know, I guess would be desire for, you know, having understanding that you want them to know that you're sorry for what happened. I think they will. Closure. You know what you're doing today for them? And this is what I'm saying, that's courage, is because you're giving them closure. You're giving them something that nobody else in this world can do. It's courageous.
I've been beating myself up for years, man. It ain't a switch.
I mean, I've seen your yearbook photo. I didn't recognize you. I mean, this has been really killing you and beating you up for the last 10, 12 years.
Eternity. I mean, it really did.
You having a hard time sleeping? Do you have like nightmares? And
when I do actually sleep, it's that pure exhausted where you go straight into REM and you wake up immediately like you didn't sleep.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about.
You know, that's about the only kind of sleep I get. I mean, other than that, last night, maybe 30, 45 minutes. Last night I was highly stressed, which isn't unusual, but you know, it's that sleep. No more than 4 hours would be a vacation, you know.
Yeah. Have you taken any kind of medication since then that try to help you sleep? I'm assuming that's probably why you have some medication.
Yes, I used to take what was it called? Seroquel, something like that. And I pissed to bed one night and I quit taking it.
Just a lot of bad side effects.
Yeah, I mean, I'd rather fucking not sleep than go into a coma for 8. The house could have burned down and I wouldn't woke up. Right. You know, plus medicine nowadays scares me. Just because when I went through all that health stuff, they'd give me 10, 12 bottles of pills and I could literally line this whole desk up with the side effects.
Right.
You know,
they give you one pill that causes this side effect, so you take a pill for that side effect, causes another side effect, take another pill for that side. It's just a never-ending cycle.
Yes, sir. It is.
you said before, with, you have to come to terms with that in your own way.
Yes, sir.
And then the way things happened was wrong. I mean, it's just wrong.
Yes, sir.
Like you said, and I'm just repeating what you say, nobody deserves that treatment no matter what they've done.
Yes, sir.
But, like soldiers, we have soldiers that go after you. Were one of them. That, for you, in the right state of mind, is not capable of being that person. But when you get involved with these other things that create that inside of you, it changes you.
It did. I mean, it got to where I was a different person. I mean, like I said, when I was drinking real bad, I just had these fucking outbursts. I'd break windows, and I never hurt anybody. I never tried to, but I'd just be screaming and hollering and carrying on, and I'm not that type of person. I've never been. I've never been angry. I ain't gonna say I've never been angry, but
Impulsive?
I'm impulsive. I've had that problem. I mean, with cigarettes, caffeine, all the typical things. But
Well, do you want a Coke or coffee?
no, sure. No, sure.
Like I said, if you want anything, you
Cigarette
can.
popped in my head, but I know you can't smoke in these buildings, so.
We could probably find you a cigarette if you want to sit down outside and have a smoke. Do you want to? If I can find you one?
No, sure. No, I need to.
I tell you what we'll do when we get out there. We'll let you go ahead and light up a cigarette out there. How about that? That thing will help you a little bit.
I don't have any, sir.
We'll get you one. That won't be a problem.
I mean, I don't want.
We'll get you one. We'll get you one. That won't be a problem. Promise you. Will not be a problem. Okay? Like I said, I can just tell this has been wearing on you a long time. And I think at the end of the day, believe it or not, you'll say that you haven't been able to sleep. I think no matter where you are tonight, you're gonna sleep because you've gotten this behind you. I know you think that you won't, but you're going to.
And just such a year.
Dealing with this for an entire third of your life.
Well, I don't want it to sound like party for me, no illusions about what I've done. There ain't a second that goes by that I don't think about her or a million questions. What if I coulda, woulda, shoulda.
I think the biggest thing for the family in looking at it is really the why. Why did it happen? Was there something related to a relationship that went bad? Or was it something like what you're saying? Was this thing that turned into this thing? Having that knowledge, believe it or not, is a lot of closure for people to have an understanding. Just to have that why is an understanding.
I can't imagine, what they could have even awful. I mean, wouldn't waste that shit on a fucking terrorist. You really wouldn't. I mean, just.
I wouldn't waste what? I wouldn't waste what on terrorism?
Well, having somebody vanish like that, the what ifs, and
Right.
I mean, it's got to be a nightmare for them, and this ain't gonna do nothing. Like you said, I hope it does help.
It'll bring closure. Like I said, for all they know, she could have still been alive somewhere. Look at these stories that come out where these little kids get taken and
20 years
10 or 15 years later they're still alive. This gives them that closure.
Yes, sir.
You're able to give them.
Yeah, I should have dealt with it then and there. I mean, the question I went over the most is if I hadn't have ran out, if they're.
But like you said, when you went back to go check on her,
That's.
you checked for a pulse and all those kinds of things, and she didn't have one.
Yeah, but I could have done the right thing then and there, and I didn't. That's the shit that bothers me.
You were scared, weren't you?
Yes, sir. I still am. Got no illusions about where I'm going either.
Can you ask for forgiveness?
I had to every day. God forgive me, for I never will.
Well, you can't get forgiveness unless you ask for it, right?
Yeah, but God.
Truly ask for it.
Yes, sir.
Don't you think you're meeting halfway at this point?
I've been, yeah.
seeing all the posters and stuff around over the years has probably been kind of tough.
Yes, sir. I could never look at one. Miss Grinstead. I mean, I just.
And you never had Anna as a teacher in school? She was just a teacher you knew there?
She just another face.
Yeah, did you play sports or anything while you were there?
Yes. Well, I played tennis. I did play football, but I quit my senior year. It's the only year I played down here. I played pretty regular, but so as soon as I turned 16, I started working. You know,
I understand. I did the same thing. Kind of hard keeping a job and playing sports and all that at the same time. I understand.
Well, it's funny, you know, I quit my job, or I quit football because I really wasn't happy with the coach, and long story. Same week I got fired from my job because I was playing football.
Yeah.
You know, it's just
Definitely understand.
just true definition of hell was meeting the person that you could have become.
And you think you've become that person now?
No, it's the person I could have been. You know?
Oh, that's what you're saying. That's what you're saying.
If I hadn't done everything I did to get to this point right now,
Right.
you die, and I do go to hell, and I meet this guy that, you know, that could have been me. I could have been happy. I could have had a family.
Life ain't over.
Yeah, it is.
Nah, it's in your mind.
It's beginning, but it's over.
I'm telling you, you're bringing closure to something. No matter your part in it, you're bringing closure to something, and by doing what you're doing today and being honest about what you had done then, you're bringing that closure, and you're actually helping people today.
Yeah,
But you're also helping a lot of people too. You're bringing closure. All those people that people were pointing fingers at and saying, you're the one, you know, you're the one that did this, you're the one. That's not going to ever happen again. And they're going to be, guess what, they get to be able to move on now too. It's not just a family that's going to get closure. This whole community is going to get closure.
I understand that.
Because of you doing the right thing today and saying, hey, look, I'm the one responsible for that. You know what I mean? Taking responsibility is growing up and becoming the people that we should be. And you're doing that now. It doesn't matter when you do it. It matters how you do it.
Yes.
And that's what you're doing today. And I'm telling you, that's courageous to come forward and do what you're doing now. Could you not have come in here and told some lies and everything like that? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
And made this a lot harder than it has to be? Yeah, you could have done that. But you came in here, no matter what it was, you came in here and you were honest. And that shows courage. Moving forward, you're willing to take us out there and show us, you know, where her body was cremated and burned, and you're going to show us that, and you're going to tell us that, and that's all part of this big cycle of closure that everybody's going to get.
Yes.
You sure you're going to drink anything?
No, sir. I'm all right.
I mean, that was before that. But,
I got a thick mustache. I got folliculitis, so I don't like shaving.
Oh, okay.
I didn't learn that until I was in the military. I had
Really?
ingrown hairs all the way around my neck, and I actually got a
Prescription not to shave?
PT pass, not PT, what the fuck they call it. Some kind of pass. I could shave every other day.
Well, that was good. I wish I could do that.
It's dark haired, you know. You're a dark haired guy.
Oh, yeah.
I was tall.
Yeah, right now I am. It's been a long couple of days, honestly.
Yes, sir. I do not envy you and your job.
But, you know, like I said, yeah, it's a rough job because of what we have to do.
Yes.
I mean, at the end of the day, we're seekers of truth. But being able to, I'm telling you, being able to come in here today and bring closure. I'm telling you, you're not just bringing closure to family. You're bringing closure to everybody who's ever worked this case, who's ever been involved with this case. And I'm telling you, it's like thousands of people. Okay? All right, let me, we're going to keep that going until we get to where we're going. I want to grab something out of my car. I put that arrest record in there. sure you don't need anything? Water? Well, I'll try to find you some cigarettes.
Thank you, sir. Trash can, sir. I'll hang on to it, sir.
I don't see what it is.
It's a bottle of water, too. Alright, I got you a couple cigarettes too there in the car. We'll just want to get out there you can smoke. Well, you put them in the front. You ain't up there already. Not too tight, huh? Alright, I'm going to go to one so they don't tighten up on you. We'll take your water with us, okay? Alright. I'm going to put this in your pocket if that's okay.
That's fine, sir.
That way, when we put this in there, we can keep it on record.
Yes, sir. Which way?
We're going to go to the left, just follow the left. Follow the picture, please. It's not. It wasn't running anyway. Okay. You don't have any wet pocket knives or anything?
No, sir, I don't have any things in my pockets.
It's just something you know better, Chuck. You do.
I understand. I don't carry, ever.
Oh, okay. That's fine. Thank y'all. Just follow right over here with me, okay?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes,
We're
sir.
gonna put you in the front seat, okay?
Yes, sir.
If I stopped at 2808, I would think be a good stopping point to start back.
That'll be fine. Let's get something to eat, ladies and gentlemen. Leave your pads there in your chair. Nobody will bother them while we're on the lunch break. Once again, don't discuss the case with anybody. Don't even discuss it among yourselves while you're enjoying your lunch. Y'all can adjourn. Let's everybody in the audience remain in place while the jury leaves the courtroom. Thank you. We'll start back about 1:15, y'all. Let me take up a couple other things.
Is it okay to leave this right here?
Sure. Y'all can come on back, Miss Merchant. Thank you. It's playing now.
A little over an hour, it looks like.
All right, and that's 185, right? All right. Now, at some point, 186 is going to pick up. Has it already? It will start when you get to the orchard.
It does not. It starts when they get to the orchard, but I actually wanted to bring that up. I don't know if you want to do it now or later. So what I have done, Judge, is in order to be able to not have to play both of them since they overlap, is I have found a way to play them simultaneously with the video just muted. And so the audio comes from, because the audio from this disc is much better than the audio from the video because of how far away the camera is. And so essentially it's a dubbing is what I'm doing, is I'm playing the video and the audio simultaneously, and I have the correct time to start it so that they're matched up. And so that's what I would expect to do unless there's an objection to that. But otherwise they're going to hear both the video and, watch a video and see an audio with the same thing.
So those two devices were running at the same time?
Yes, Sean.
On
For the portion
on
of the
that
video.
day, yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
All right, any problem?
No.
With that? Thank you, Ms. Merchant. Anything else from the state we need to talk about over the lunch?
No, not over lunch, but I do need to get the original search warrant. It was under seal in the clerk's file for the defendant's DNA. I think they maybe asked you about that earlier.
All right, if you'll just, the clerk.
Yes. When I spoke with the clerk yesterday, she said you had the file, so that's why, but it'll have to be unsealed. as
Well,
well.
it's in the
Yes, sir.
chambers, I guess that's what she meant. Anything for y'all from the defense we need to
Out of the file, I would like a copy of the indictment. Yes, that's it.
copy of the indictment?
Yes.
We got it. All right, we'll be in recess till about 1:15.